Musical Talk, the UK independent musical theatre podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Musical Talk. My name is Mike Shapiro. Last summer at the Hollywood Fringe, I saw an entertaining and rather endearing musical called Pockets. The show bills itself as a British-ish musical comedy, likely because of the quasi-Victorian setting and mid-Atlantic accents. The story concerns the daughter of the Duchess of Crumpeton, who rebels against her mother to become an infamous thief. The show was very well received by audiences, swept the Fringe Awards, and right now is starting a second run in a quaint little town called New York City. When I heard that Pockets was set for an off-Broadway run, I set about my signature journalistic process of pestering the authors until they let me interview them. Pockets has 5 primary writer-actors who collectively go by the name Robot Teammate. The creators come from the world of improv comedy, where performers have to collaboratively devise narratives in real time.
Different choice.
Where performers have to adapt to audience suggestions.
Different choice.
Where performers have to make stuff up. As you'll hear, this improv background plays heavily into how Pockets was developed. So sit back and relax, unless you're skateboarding, and enjoy this chat with Robot Teammate.
Hello, my name is Chris Bramante. I am part of Robot Teammate. I am of the improvisational company, as well as one of the writers of Pockets and the other various musicals, and one of the producers, and I portray the role of Vegan in Pockets.
Hi, I'm Branson NeJame. I am the accompanist and a member of Robot Teammate. On Pockets, I was helping with the production along with composing and doing a lot of acting this time around as Star Baker Bran in my special scene.
Hey, this is the voice of Cat Primeau. I play the Duchess in Pockets. But in Robot Teammate, my beloved team, I play the role of producer, comedy choreographer, co-creator, whatever needs to be doneer. Thank you.
Sup, I'm Dave. I was the head writer of Pockets, and I also play 3 characters, Town Crier Rob Crier, Jim Val Jim, and also Barkley St. Piggins, the assistant to the Duchess. Yes.
The clutch to the Dutch. I'm Molly Dworsky. I am a member of Robot Teammate, meaning I improvise musicals with these fools, and we have also scripted musicals that I help write, and have also directed a little bit in this group when we script our shows, and I play Bellamina Crumbledunk, who goes undercover as Pockets in this musical that we're doing right now.
Well, you answered all my questions, so thank you all for coming here today. And
It's been great.
Thank you, Mike.
Awesome.
Yes.
Have a good one.
So my first question is, how do I pluralize you? If I'm referring to you collectively, are you robots or are you teammates or something in between?
The robots, I'd say.
It's a great question. We've never been asked that. When we've been referred to as like robot team, and it isn't what we call ourselves, but we'll answer to it. But that's a great question. Yeah, the robots is how we refer to each other.
I think, we even go by bots sometimes.
And sometimes just as robot, as like a general...
A collective?
Yeah.
Like Voltron, you just merge
Exactly,
into one.
exactly.
Nice. Well, big picture for our listeners who haven't had the pleasure of meeting you yet. You are a performing and writing collective that has brought original musical theater to the Hollywood Fringe and elsewhere for 4 or 5 years at this point. We'd love to hear a little bit about your secret origin, how you discovered each other, how you got started, who came up with the name.
I'll start off. This is Dave. Actually, this started a long time ago in a living room in the Valley, and a bunch of us were sort of hanging out. I'm actually the only founding member of the day. The next day, Chris showed up. So he is, I still always say that. But Chris showed up the next day. But
I was in the first show.
He was in the first show, but not in the naming, which I bet he would have not enjoyed the naming, because it was a bunch of people sort of talking about what improv team they want to have, and we all had different names. So Sean, our piano player, Sean Grindle, who used to be our piano player, he wanted to be Robot Teammate, and I wanted to be the Accidental Party. And slowly but surely, the Accidental Party disappeared from the back half of the name. So now we're just Robot Teammate. But we basically started jamming, and then we realized that we were getting too big for our britches. Our shows needed more people, and we had auditions, and that's where we got Kat. And Kat joined in, and it's been a big journey of people coming in and coming out of it. But now we're all here right now and feeling very in the groove with this amount of people and the people who are part of Robot right now.
When you were formed, did you have an eye on musical theater, or were you more of a traditional improv group doing sketches or bits?
We were just sort of a musical improv troupe. We had never done classes, ever.
Yeah, it was full musical improv. It was, and I don't think I would have done it if it wasn't musical, because I was more comfortable and remain more comfortable with the musical aspect of the improv than the actual improv itself. But the first show ever was at the Bang Theater, which is now called the Open Space Cafe on Fairfax. And we did a bunch of shows there, and then eventually, as the group got bigger, we were invited to perform at the IO West, which is now also no longer a theater, at a cage match called the Cherry Crush. And we were invited in to do that, and then we won that for 86 weeks in a row, which was like our initial kind of calling card. And throughout that process, that's how we built our form and our company.
Now, when you say you won that, it implies a competition.
It was an audience vote. So at the end of the night, a group called Cherry would host the evening, and they would bring
An
in two
improv
groups. Yeah. And then the audience at the IO West would vote at the end of the night, and we won it for 86 weeks.
It was a weekly show, so 86 weeks, a year and a half straight of 15-minute musicals that we were improvising as a group. Just by getting an audience suggestion of a title, we'd have a beginning, middle, and end. We had to have characters that were interesting, songs that were funny. It was a really good practice experience for coming up with tons of musical ideas.
Were the other teams presenting also doing musicals, or were they doing
Not
more?
necessarily.
A few did. I think in the 86 weeks, there were possibly 2 to 3 that were musical.
So it is well known that a way to get good at something is to do it over and over again, and it sounds like you found a venue that allowed you to do exactly that.
I mean, the best part about doing all these musicals was the seeing what worked and seeing what didn't work. And it was failing through experience and being like, oh, maybe we shouldn't go so quickly into our hero song or take more time with things. And we're able to experiment with these 86 weeks and sort of test ideas that we would never think of if it was our only third time playing together. We were hitting, 70 weeks, and your mind has to go to many different places when you're doing sort of the same repeated thing over and over again. So we really expanded our mind.
And there was also some forms that would come back. Like there was Thug Tunnel, which was one of our shows at the Hollywood Fringe. We did at the Cherry Crush. And then many weeks later, there was a show called Villains. And I remember that it was rather similar in its pattern. It was like an underground scenario in which Kat was trying to escape a dangerous situation and I was her sidekick. Dave was the villain. And so in the process of Thug Tunnel, we watched both of those videos back to kind of mine it for ideas.
And we should say that we did ultimately script 3 musicals before Pockets: Time Heart, Thug Tunnel, and Turbulence. So what Chris is referring to is an improvised show that came out of just an audience suggestion that then we all loved so much that we decided to script it for the Hollywood Fringe Festival.
So when you were doing these improvised musicals, you were not starting with any parameters. You were just throwing it out to the audience and saying, give us something to sing about.
We had a form that we liked to follow, but we could always deviate from it. And at this point, we were rehearsing once a week, performing once a week. We expanded to a 1-hour improvised musical form. We were having sleepovers. We were sharing the movies we were watching, whatever we were reading. It was a very intense ensemble building time. So we were finding similarities and being able to generate these ideas from this shared experience and from this form that we were improvising.
Do any of you have backgrounds in musical theater specifically?
If my high school is any indication, then sure, yes. A lot of high school and middle school and elementary school.
And I studied music, so I did. This is Branson. I studied music, and I played as an accompanist or in the pit of a lot of musicals, kind of going through that career.
Right on.
Community theater and musicals since I was 8 years old, but this was my first experience then seriously scripting beyond the basement musicals I put on for only my family and neighbors.
Just high school.
Yeah, I've been obsessed with musical theater since I was tiny. My grandma would take me to the Children's Theater in Minneapolis, and I was hooked from a really, really early age and would only listen to musicals my whole life. So very addicted to musicals.
So I'll take that as a yes.
Yes.
Very cool. What prompted the transition from doing improvised musicals to scripted shows, and why did you pick the Hollywood Fringe as your stage?
Well, we decided to do our first major photo shoot as a team. Okay.
Got it.
So we came up with a theme, and if I'm to remember correctly, it was something along the lines of 60s sci-fi. And so we all had one of these sleepovers the night before where we watched a movie, and we all just picked bizarre, silly costumes. And then we did a photo shoot at East West Studios where Kat works. And during the process, we came up with characters just for fun for who those characters were. And then eventually landed on that this is a story called Time Heart. And then we got excited about the idea of actually writing Time Heart down. And then Kat, who had been involved in the Fringe, made the suggestion that there was actually a venue where we could present it.
Yeah, it became that we were enjoying these short form shows, and of course it was fun to do the 15 minutes and the 1 hour shows, but from there we had built this great audience and we had these great ideas, so we thought, why not try it out and take it to a whole new medium. The live theater is a different scene than improv, and I think it's a testament that all these theaters are closing and changing, that our improv theaters, that musical theater will last for a while longer. But I had been involved in the Fringe and thought this is the perfect place to try out these ideas and to test this for the first time.
Kat is just incredible, and without Kat, we wouldn't have been able to do the Fringe. I mean, just the amount of work she did, and also just having done it before, she sort of knew the ins and outs and knew the certain things we had to do to get the attention of all of these people who didn't know who we were.
So am I understanding that the concept for Time Heart emerged from your photo shoot?
Yeah.
Like you were just playing around with costumes and said, I've got a great idea for a musical?
Oh yeah, we were just goofing around.
We just came up with characters. It was just, Dave was Bruce Greenstreet. I had all the ties. It was like Professor Allties, and, we're like Kat's the Time Heart, and Molly could be Melody McMoon, and we just thought it was funny, and then eventually just kept talking about it, and then decided to try sitting down and writing it.
That's another thing about our scripted musicals is we're generating these characters which we're going to play in the productions as well. So we do get to bring the fullness of our own experiences, the fullness of our own personalities and tendencies and voices to these characters, which helps them to be really fun and really dynamic.
And helps us to write things that we know we're going to enjoy performing.
This is an interesting segue to what I think touches on the heart of the distinction between improv and scripted theater, or at least how scripted theater is usually done. Improv is, of course, collaborative and spontaneous, and every person is reacting to whatever everyone else is coming up with. Traditionally, of course, the scripted musical tends to be much more top-down and premeditated and often the work of one book writer. So how did you make that transition where you're all in real time tossing out ideas and there's no ability to revise anything, to a medium where you can go back and forth across the body of a story, where you need to plan things out and think of character arcs?
We're still figuring it out.
Well, when we began writing Time Heart, much of the process began and there was no organized process. It was just us trying and getting together. And then eventually what we did was we decided to implement from the shows going forward that we would select a head writer for each show, mostly as just someone that would be the tiebreaker and someone whose responsibility it was to guide that process. So for Time Heart, that was me. For Thug Tunnel, it was Molly. For Turbulence, it was Miles. And then for Pockets, it was Dave. So we always have that rotating position just so that there always is one voice that, like, at the end of the day, if we really can't agree on something, that someone does have the power to move us forward. And that also is then organizing how that process is going to go, because each process has been a little different. There's always some improv involved, and there always are iterations of the show that are changed, but I think each head writer has approached it in a different way, and each time we do it, we're learning how to even still do that at all.
And our ensemble, the cast of our ensemble is changing. For every show, we've had a different configuration of people in our collective. So that it changes the dynamic every time.
Yeah, I actually wasn't. I was recruited shortly after Time Heart, so I wasn't a part of that one. But I was a part of Thug Tunnel and Pockets and Turbulence.
Now, imagine that one advantage of having a head writer emerge from your group is that he or she knows the personalities and capabilities of everyone and can write a story that can support what everyone's good at doing.
Well, I would say that we definitely come up with everything as a group. When I was doing it for Pockets, my big thing was just trying to be there with everybody in the room and trying not to do any work outside of the room, because, you know, we tried other ways of doing this, and sometimes it's just easier to be all together so there's no double talk or no double arguments or no double debates. It's easier to get it done in the room with everybody. And it is a 100% collaborative process where we are writing our own songs. We write our own lines of dialogue. And if anybody bumps up with anything, we talk about that. And that could be one word to a whole monologue. And we will talk these things out till we go insane. But it's because of that process that I think we have a very widely accepted sort of vibe. And I would say that more than anything, Robot Teammate is a vibe. I think people come to the shows and they really, really just dig being part of it. And I think that's because we all are part of it. And there's no singular, perspective. It's all these perspectives. And it's only because of that we're so, I guess, celebrated, which is really amazing. I mean, to be new to the Fringe community, our first time with Time Heart, and to be right away just sort of like welcome to the community. I mean, it says a lot about us, but it says a lot about Fringe too, that they're a place that you can walk in there and be no one, and then you know everyone a week later and everyone's your friend, and it's like, oh, we're supporting everybody, and we're able to do that because we start here where we're supporting everybody.
I thought I'd pause the interview here to share with you some of the music from Pockets. Hot off of Pro Tools, this is the very recently released single from the cast album of the show. The song is called Family Breakfast.
Are you up yet, little one? Come and greet the sun. We've all been waiting for you. Daddy and Mommy have yummies for your tummy. Together we've something to do. It's family breakfast, family breakfast, family breakfast to show that we care. Whether crumpets or bangers, pancakes or oats, yogurts with berries or pieces of toast, rashers of bacon, poached eggs and the rest. Family breakfast is simply the best. It's family breakfast, family breakfast, family breakfast. The whole family's there. Family breakfast, family breakfast, family breakfast. 'Cause breakfast is love, and we love this family. And if love is breakfast, you guessed it, this family loves breakfast.
I've only seen of your canon. I've only seen Pockets so far, but I'm impressed that something that was so democratically constructed feels so through written. It doesn't feel like it's a group of skits that are stitched together, which is what you might expect to come out of that process. But if, as you're saying, you're really just a first among equals, maybe a little bit of a traffic cop, then I'm impressed with the degree of coherence in the story.
Well, I do also think that in that process, while we do have these debates and while we do have these, conflicts of writing, when we're all in the room sort of like, we want to do this, we want to do that, after those, we're more honed in. So every time we have these meetings, we know the story more and more. So we can't really, after the writing process, diverge from what we've already established. And I think that's why it feels so concrete and like one story. It's because it is. We don't write it as sketches. We write it as one story because that's what we want to do. We tell narrative stories, and we do that with our improv too.
And we're all very opinionated, so the process is long. The writing sessions are very long, and there are many of them. And there isn't a scene, there isn't a couplet in the entire 63 pages that we haven't all poured over and okayed before it gets printed. or reprinted, or reprinted, slightly differently.
So this is a rare case where a lot of chefs did not, in fact, spoil. I don't even know how that aphorism ends. Thank you. That didn't happen, which seems to be an impressive accomplishment of collaboration.
We all come from a different perspective and have different skill sets. And I think that those have come to a fusion where someone can be thinking like a dramaturg and someone can be thinking like a producer and someone can be thinking solely of one through line of a singular character and someone can be thinking of the big picture the whole time.
And we're each other's editors, and if somebody doesn't catch something, someone else will. So we sort of have that like many layers of filtration. So we're happy and because we get along, we like each other and surprise each other in improvisational settings and social settings. The way that translates to the page is that we can surprise each other in our scene writing and also sort of have each other's backs in how we are storytelling and making sure that and also because we play the characters that we write, we're each following everyone's arc in a really meaningful way because we have to do it. And so the writing, hopefully, I'm glad to hear that it feels unified and complete. And I think probably a lot of that is because each one of us is tracking a different thing about the show. When we come up against conflict in our writing, there's always a third answer. Like it's between two things that we're fighting about, and we're getting better at it, but we have to learn to let go of both things and find the third thing, because the third thing always makes us laugh, surprises us, is better for the story, and whatever we're arguing about is really hard to let go of. But then we have had the experience over and over of realizing that the release of those things that aren't working for one person or another for some reason are telling us something, and that we need to find the portal to the next correct answer.
And it's that trust we've built up. I mean, if there's a moment where it's a sort of 3-1 vote, that person trusts that the other three are right-minded and are saying, how they really feel. And I just want to also say that another thing that's important is we switch who's leads and who's supporting and all these different characters. So there's never a moment where someone's trying to get more stage time or trying to influence their character to be seen more, because we all are about story first. And because we're switching all around, we're able to spread the wealth in that way.
Improv is about presence and holding on to that singular moment that is now. And so we are able to let go and be very mindful in that way. And I think that creates a less of an ego-driven process.
Ego-less.
Not ego-less.
No, ego-less.
This might be a good juncture for someone to give a synopsis of Pockets, to the extent that you want to reveal the story. There may be some listeners in New York City who might have heard the interview so far, and maybe they feel incentivized to come check it out. So what would they expect to see?
Well, the way that I would describe it is I describe Pockets as a Dickensian farce that follows the story of a duchess's daughter on the lead up to her town's big holiday, and her mother has become neglectful in the process because the Duchess has focused so much on having a celebrated amazing Crumpet Day as the first Duchess to ever oversee Crumpet Day, that in order to gain her mother's attention, she resorts to becoming a street thief who gains notoriety under a name called Pockets. And in the process, Pockets gets sucked into the criminal underbelly and becomes part of a rebellion to overthrow her mother, and gets deeper in a way that she never really intended. And that's about as much as I would share.
Branson, did you compose the entire score?
We worked together as a group with each of the songs, and then kind of off of that, through rehearsals and through the performances and through a group of really wonderful live musicians, we composed the score off of like those songs that would take each scene and to really drive the emotion and the vibe of whatever was happening in the show.
Branson works collaboratively with each of us and is also a member of our group when we're improvising, scoring, bringing a specific style to each number. So when we approach writing with him, we come with giant pile of ideas and parse it out together from there with him. And then it's really fun because he'll also improvise under the scenes and score the comedy with us.
I think the brilliant thing about Branson, too, is we all separately write our individual songs. So we all give 100% to our songs individually as well as group songs. And Branson gives that to every single song, and they all sound like they're from Branson. And I think one of the best things about Pockets, or the best compliments, was the music was so, outrageously epic and also just so personal. It had so much sweetness to it. And I think walking away from this, everybody was saying it was like our sweetest and most kind-hearted. And I think that's a big thing with the music. That's the main deal with a musical. You sing when you can't say it anymore. And Branson has just been killing it in allowing us to be collaborative in like saying like, oh, what if it goes do 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 do, because I don't know notes or anything. I'm an idiot. So with Branson, he knows how to interpret every type of person and just make it incredible.
Now, just to make sure I understand what you've told me correctly, you said that each of you writes your own character's songs. Do you mean lyrically, or do you compose the music as well, or is it kind of a back and forth with Branson?
Yeah, it's really every which what direction. Sometimes it's lyrics, sometimes it's reference songs, sometimes it's just vibes, or like, this is what I want to accomplish in this song, and then we kind of just work through that step by step, finding something, kind of like Molly said earlier with that, one thing doesn't work, second thing doesn't seem to work, so we find that happy medium in the third thing. And it turned out, this is the first time in a while that I've had something that I was a creative voice on, and I'm just very passionate and very happy that people have been enjoying it.
I remember with the initial pass of Gift of the Lift, which is a song that Vegan and his gang sing, that I had a very long commute after work. It would take me about a little bit over an hour in traffic to get to practice, and I wasn't having a ton of time to sit down with pen and paper, so I just had Branson's track and listened to it on loop for an hour and just kind of improvised it to myself in my car ride, since I couldn't write anything down. So the initial kind of first verse of that, I without even being able to write it down, just kind of for an hour, listened to it on repeat, and then the parts that I remembered, I was like, well, I guess I like these parts, and then pitched it to Branson, and then he interprets it, and then show it to the group, and through Dave and leading the writing process, and Molly and Kat and Dave and Branson, everybody's got fingerprints on everything in varying degrees, but definitely the group songs, it's like we sit down, and it takes a while, but we hash it out as a unit.
How would you characterize the musical style or styles of the show?
Whew, that's a good one. I would say it's funny because when we started this, and I might get in trouble for saying this, but when we started it, we were going for definitely a British-ish vibe, whether that would be the British pop, like we had talked about ELO, or if it would be like the British musical theater vibe, like Oliver Twist and stuff. And it's kind of come into its own fruition of a industrial Britain approachable musical.
It seems like it's a hybrid because if memory serves, you've got cello on stage, but you've got elements of a rhythm section, and one song feels like a little bit of a touch of Gloria Gaynor, and others seem more like straight four-to-the-floor rock, and then a few are ballads. So was there an attempt to try to hybridize different pop vocabularies with a little bit of medieval-ish influence?
Yeah, see, I honestly, that's totally it, because when I came into Robot, I was the guy who would be the sideman to like casino bands and restaurants and churches and all those other places to play, but Robot finally gave me a medium in which I played music and I improvised things that was not, that was creative, and it was creatively driven, and it was our own voice. And yeah, so you kind of hit the nail on the head where it was, I've always loved rock and classic rock and British pop and stuff like that. And it kind of hit us, where do you find that classic British vibe? And the cello presented kind of a segue into that, whether it was Beatles, ELO, Gloria Gaynor, like all those things. That's where it came from.
We won't talk about Oasis, but yeah.
I think the thing, too, about a Robot show is while we're writing it, we're all very aware of what everybody in the audience already knows. We know they are very up on cultural and pop culture aspects and things, so we don't feel so strange dipping into all those different genres, because we know that if the story's good, the audience is gonna go along with us no matter what we do. If the story's good, every choice we make is is important and part of that story, even if it is doing a song, that is a little bit more Gloria Gaynor, or our opening, which is totally like a British, like waking up in the morning, jolly old good time.
We have a bardic tome as well, trying to hit all the hits.
And the new incarnation of Pockets also has a holiday carol, which I'm really excited about too.
You were demonstrating a physical jingle, as in the bells, so I assume that's part of it.
Oh, the sleigh bells are ready to go.
Well, that'll do nicely for a December performance.
We kept that in mind.
Hey, oh yeah, we got a
One of the songs that strikes me as being an emotional linchpin of the story is, I guess, the I Want song that Pocket sings called Most Wanted. And without going into too much detail, it reveals her motivation, that she's not just an anarchistic thief. She actually is doing this as a strategy, as you said, to get much needed attention from her mother, the Duchess. And I remember hearing that song and thinking, okay, I get it. I'm on her side now because I see what she wants and what her intentions are. And okay, I'm on board with her mission, essentially. And I feel like without that song, the entire show might not have been as emotionally resonant. It might have seemed more like a long goof. But from that point forward, I was really riding along in her head. So whose idea was the song, and how did you develop that concept? And did the motivation precede the song, or did the song kind of give musical voice to an idea that was already there, or did you come up with the motivation while writing the song?
So we wrote a version of Pockets that was entirely different from the show that we performed at the Fringe. Dave was still head writer, and it was a completely different concept surrounding Bellamina as the royalty going in hiding or going undercover as a thief. And so I think that motivation of wanting to be noticed and wanting to be wanted by whoever, because in the first iteration I was your dad. It was her. She wanted the attention of her dad,
Who was like the constable.
Yeah. So I think that was like the only thing that we kept from the first version of the show, but it was a different I Want to Be Wanted song. It was like totally different lyrics and everything.
It's a little bit more Alanis Morissette vibe.
Yeah. But the core, like, I think that what we struggled with in the first version of the show, which we ultimately scrapped, was what is the show about? And and it was before I had come up with the Wanna Be Wanted, and I just was like, we had a really frustrating writing session, and I was like driving home or something, and you know how just like whenever the idea come, I don't remember exactly when, it struck me that was a funny pun, or like a play on words. That was a good play on words. That was a good chorus. And then I just held on to that as that needs to be what Bellamina's motivation is for the whole show. And then when we held on to that, then we could sort of build the show around basically that song.
We were in the car and you said it and I was like, oh my God, that's it. And we were like freaked because we were on the way to an improv show. Because I remember we were going past to the Scientology building and you said most I remember it so vividly because like, oh my God, we got it. We got it. How is that not it? So, I mean, it was, and that's the thing about Robot 2 is like once we hit something that we know is right, it's like smooth sailing.
So for our listeners across the pond, the phrase Most Wanted is kind of a trope out of Westerns. It's when you'd see a criminal's face on a poster, it would say Most Wanted, and that would be the advertisement for bounty hunters or lawmakers, enforcers to go and capture the bad guy. So that's my attempt at being a cultural ambassador.
Thank you for contextualizing.
Wanted, dead or alive.
Yes, and that's why it's British-ish, because that's apparent. That's very early American to have a wanted poster, and wouldn't really be in Britain. Good point.
Well, the level of realism, I think, is very forgiving of anachronisms like that. And, you've got pop elements in the show. So as an audience member, I accepted that there was going to be a bit of a pastiche of different cultures and tongue-in-cheek references to different things.
Yes. Yes.
Do you agree?
I think it's worth saying, like, I'm not going to try to give anything away, but in the particular song that we're talking about, there's a lot of pop culture references with the choreography that Bellamina does, which I loved watching while I was playing it.
That's all Kat.
This is an excellent segue to my next question, because, Kat, you are credited as co-choreographer, which is really hard to say as a word. You have a lot of bodies in this show. In addition to the core Robot Teammate members here, you have a large supplementary cast. Was it 15 or 16 in total?
We had 23 people involved in this production at Hollywood Fringe, including our 4-piece live band. So that was 19 bodies to choreograph on the stage, which really gave us a great chorus vibe and a lot of energy with our opening and big numbers. And also it really was a lot of fun and super impressed me at our ability to convince that many people to come be silly with us.
And was there any kind of role model or reference that you had in mind when you were doing the choreography?
Again, it is a pastiche of so many things. So for the Hollywood Fringe, my background is in musical theater and also in cheer dance and also in clowning and also in devised work and physical gestures. So I think there's not a singular thing for Bellamina, her being a little kid and being able to floss and using what Molly's great abilities are, which I am already familiar with from working on choreography for the past 3 scripted musicals. Just really let her shine.
Kat noticed in our last musical that I could not put my thumbs down. If we were supposed to have a fist, my thumbs were always up, and I couldn't think about the choreography and put my thumbs down. I could only do the choreography with my thumbs up. So she gave me only moves to do in this show that have my thumbs up.
She can do the Elaine brilliantly.
Yeah, that's why Pockets is agreeing with everything all the time. It's like, thumbs up, yeah.
But for this iteration in New York, we do have Allie Miller, a Fringe super celeb, helping with the choreography. So she is boosting everything, turbo boosting it, if you will.
You're providing me with perfect segues. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about the production itself, its reception at the Hollywood Fringe, and then how this segued into an opportunity to perform it Off-Broadway. So what's the progression from one city to another?
We were very fortunate in 2017 to be invited to Soho Playhouse in New York to do a production of our show Turbulence. So we already had an experience in this theater that we are going to again this December. And the producer there goes to every Fringe festival around the world and likes to bring his favorite shows to have an opportunity to be off-Broadway in New York in a beautiful 178-seat theater. It's very historic, and the seats are great, and the dressing rooms smell delightful.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's just like a little old theater.
Smells good.
Oh, it's got so much more age than our theaters here in LA, so it's very fun to be there. And so Darren Lee Cole came again this summer to the Fringe Festival, and of course I just badgered him until he came to see the show, and we made talks from there.
Do you have to adapt the show choreographically or otherwise for the different space?
We do. The stage is much smaller. Obviously, it's very difficult to bring a production from Los Angeles to New York, so we did try to streamline and reduce our ensemble a slight amount so that we could rehearse with everyone here and bring everyone to New York.
And then we've been able to, given the dimensions of it, use in our rehearsal space a taped out guide for what that is. And then Allie has been able to really work within those confines to help us feel, dialed in the new limitations. And it's like, it hopefully will blend. It's not like the stage is that little, but it's smaller than the Broadwater, which is this massive sprawling space.
Yes, it has much more depth in this space. And of course, we have this wonderful new director on this iteration, which I think what Molly might be talking about here.
Oh, I wasn't, but yes, Lauren Van Kuren is an excellent seasoned director and performer herself and writer herself, and she's been great for us. We sort of had a friend direct us who was really busy for the Fringe and did a great job, but we wanted to hone in. And because it's a mother-daughter story, we were interested in having a female director when we sort of honed it for New York. But I was going to say that our improv background sort of sets us up for the Fringe setting, where we have to throw ourselves after a tech rehearsal into a off-Broadway setting and perform for crowds that we don't know. So I think for us, we are ready for that challenge, but we are bringing 7 performers, including one guy who's never been in a play. We're bringing them to New York, and hopefully they'll feel the improvisational spirit of having to do it all without a lot of rehearsal and without a lot of preparation to be in that physical space. Yeah, so we had 14 of our friends volunteer to be in the show in the Hollywood Fringe, ensemble members, and then we cut it down to 7. So we cut it in half. And everybody's coming to New York. And some people, it's their first time. They've never been to New York before. Our cellist, a couple of our cast members have never been to New York. So we are thrilled to have the opportunity to give them an experience that we're ourselves pinching ourselves that we get to have.
Well, I hope they'll be ready for the cold, because New York in December is very different from Los Angeles in December.
Oh, yeah. We're going to be bundled up nice and good.
So
in coats. Coats.
Were you implying like we were going to be baked into a giant
Crumpet?
pigs in a blanket type, like dough type bread?
You read my mind.
That's what I thought you were saying.
Focus up.
that would be a good promotional
your head.
gesture for the show, given
yeah.
the confectionery nature of the story.
Yes.
So if we look at the big picture for Robot Teammate, it seems like you've had 2 distinct phases in the history of the organization, starting from strictly musical improv to now collaboratively scripted shows. And it seems like you're in the thick of this phase of the organization, the team's history. What do you see as the future? What would you like to do next? What's ahead?
Stage 3 is car stunts.
We're taking Robot to space.
I think we'd all love to be developing more scripted content for potential other mediums, animation, for different stages, for just bigger opportunities at other theaters outside of the Fringe realm. It's been a wonderful place to produce for us, and who knows what the next phase will be. But I think it's going to be a lot more of these silly, fresh, innovative musicals. Fresh?
Yeah, totally. I think it's like
Cameo.
we all dream quite large, and various paths have been hashed out and discussed. I think I kind of see it as almost like a video game level, where it's like we're not really going to know until we've beaten Bowser what the next land looks like. And I think that all energy right now is just being poured into Pockets New York, and that experience that audience is going to have, and the experience that we're going to have creatively through it. And I think that will lead into which of the various scenarios we have daydreamed about seems perhaps like the most prudent, given the results.
Yeah, I think that with Turbulence, we went there with only our group in the band. So now we have the responsibility of doing this right for all of our ensemble members. And there's another level to going to New York this year where it's tough to look beyond it because we don't want to do anything wrong now. and it's a little too far in the future when this is so immediate. I mean, a week from now, we're going to be there. So, I mean, it's December 1st right now. So it's like, you know, we're in the thick of it. And to even think about beyond that is a little insane.
Yeah, the future is way too far in the future for us to be thinking about. Yeah, we have dreams. We'd love to get paid instead of to pay to do it. That would be a nice change. But
We all want toupees. We want to spend all our money on various toupees.
I want more wigs.
yeah, but we love that anyone enjoys our content, whether it be improvised musicals or scripted musicals. We love performing and creating, and we'd love to do more of it. And we are open to to doing it in whatever opportunity and setting arises. And I think because we all found each other through improv, we all have that sort of personality type that is very go with the flow and say yes and to whatever the opportunity is. And that's kind of what Fringe has been for us. Fringe supported us right away, like Dave was saying, embraced us and came to see our show. And so we did another one. And so we've kind of been doing that. And then New York let us come there. And then we're going to go do another one. And so we sort of just keep saying yes and incrementally get bigger opportunities. But yeah, like Dave was saying, and like we're all sort of glazed over in panic about what's to come in the next literal week. We just are sort of let the world help us know what to do next.
If listeners would like to learn more about Robot Teammate generally and also track your upcoming New York City production, where can they go? And can you also please tell us the dates and repeat the venue of the upcoming show?
Oh my goodness. Pockets, the original Britishish musical comedy by Robot Teammate, is playing Soho Playhouse, New York City, December 11th through the 22nd. There are 10 performances within those 2 weeks. You can check out robotteammate.com. On our calendar there, we have links to all the tickets and every show through now and the end of the year. And you can also find all of our socials and a little bit more bio information about us there.
So you are intrinsically a collaborative group, and you obviously spend a lot of time in one another's presence. Do you have any projects that you indulge in on your own time individually or in subgroups?
Yeah, we all do that in our own time. The thing I would bring up is I have a lot of music videos generally revolving around like geek culture. If you look up Amontioc, Amontiock, you can check out my various music videos that are often about, like Harry Potter and Star Wars and stuff like that. And then, yeah, Branson, you want to talk?
Yeah, I work with a couple like internet Twitch things. You can find me on Hyper RPG. I do a bunch of different shows, and then both my like social media moniker and my ASCAP name is Mr. Piano Pants. So you can find that pretty much all over the internet.
I love it. I bet ASCAP loves cutting checks to Mr. Piano Pants.
Yeah, the one I got from Nickelodeon. They laughed the whole time when I registered.
Kat, how about you?
I have a band, it's called Sumo. And actually the entire band is involved in the musical Pockets, aside from our violinist. So that is, she's on the recorded album, actually. That is correct. So yeah, it's a 9-piece band. Dream pop, psychedelic dream pop, and everyone is involved in some capacity in Pockets. And Molly and I get to sing in that band together.
How do you spell it?
Sumo, Sumeau.
I would not have guessed that spelling, so I'm glad you provided that.
Yeah, and we're playing the Bowery Electric in New York when we're in town on December 19th, because why the heck not?
So if listeners want to check out your band, can they just go sumo.com or just
sumomusic.com? Yeah,
it.
Spotify, all that. Thank you for asking.
Of course.
This is Kat again. No, this is Dave. I work on like comedy videos with my friends at charneycomedy.com or Charney Comedy, YouTube, whatever. It's all that stuff. Check it out if you want. There's a fun one called Dungeons and Dating, which is fun. And then also one called Apocalypse Town, which we are lucky enough to shoot on the Universal backlot at the Back to the Future Town Hall. We won a competition where we're able to shoot there. And we actually have a song in it that Branson helped write.
I got to help.
Yeah, so if you want to see that, check it out on YouTube.
This is Molly. I very rarely get inspired to make my own musical comedy content, but when I do, I put it on YouTube. I have a couple parody videos of Lorde songs because I was told that I look like her and then got inspired. And I also wrote an original rap song about my Subaru. Rest in peace. My Subaru died this year.
Oh.
Was killed. She didn't die on her own. She was killed.
Well, that's what happens in the hip hop world, So.
Very good point. Oh, Mike.
Literal drive-by.
Oh, Mike. Yes.
Robots Teammates, it was a pleasure meeting you all, having enjoyed your show as an audience member. And I'm really happy that you're going to be able to take this highly entertaining show off Broadway and share it with New York audiences. And hopefully it will continue to have a future after that. So thank you so much for joining us here on Musical Talk.
Thank you so much.
for
Fans of
having
yours as
us.
well.
It's an honor.
Thank you.
I think that's an excellent wrap point.
Thank you.
For more information about Musical Talk, please visit our website at musicaltalk.co.uk. You can email us at feedback@musicaltalk.co.uk, listen to past episodes on iTunes and YouTube, and follow our social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.